So, as you know, the Shiro Life always brings in guests women who are showing up as Shiros in their lives and helping other women do the same. And today I have another amazing guest. Her name is Jill Wright, and she hails from Canada, one of my neighbors, far up north, where it's still probably a little bit chilly. But yes, and I'm happy to have her here because she's doing some Supermom stuff. Supermom, of course, I love that theme. So Jill is an author, speaker, and host of the Grow Like a Mother podcast. And you can find her on Instagram and Facebook at Grow Like a Mother. It's going to be fun to have Jill on here with me because I think her story is pretty relatable for any mom out there who is doing all the things. Can you feel me? Doing all the things. So, Jill, thank you so much for being here on That Shiro Life podcast as a guest. I can't wait to dive into your story and what you've learned through your journey and what you can share with other women and moms who are trying to just hold it all together and come out better on the other side.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here chatting with you. And I can just tell already from our little pre chat what a good conversation we're going to have today. So I'm really excited.
We're going to have some fun. And I know that the audience, every woman who hears this, whether they're a mother or not, there's something that they can get from this because the principles of organization are probably, relatable across life, but you'll also give us some as moms of things we can do. And so I can't wait to dive in. But first, I got to know, how did you get into this work? Tell us your story. What's your origin story?
Yeah, going back. It's funny. It doesn't go back that far, this particular story. It was in 2019. I was on maternity leave because in Canada we get a full year. So I was in the middle of my maternity. I know, with my second kid. And I decided that I didn't want to go back to my career in hospitality. It was late nights and long hours and weekends, and I already had one kid. So I thought, now's the time to pursue entrepreneurship. It was something I had always wanted to do. And so I quit my job and I set about to open up a thrift store for consigning women's clothes in my little town. So I didn't have to commute downtown every day and I could be home with the babies and it was very exciting. And then, of course, a few months later, before the store actually opened, the pandemic hit, which threw like a major curveball situation. And the daycares were shut down. So I was home with the two babies. They were 1 and 3. I couldn't have any help in because we were so unsure in those early days if it was safe to see your parents, grandparents, like whoever.
Mhm.
Um, and during that time when I was just struggling with that, my eldest child, he was 3, he was diagnosed with autism, which created a whole slew of requirements and challenges we weren't expecting. And I was also really deep in postpartum depression and anxiety. So it was just this perfect storm of everything. And I felt really overwhelmed, as I'm sure many moms do, whether they're in the pandemic days or now. You can relate, I think, no matter when you're listening.
Mhm.
And so I sort of realized I had that come to Jesus moment and I was like, listen, I can't change my external circumstances. I can't snap my fingers and make the daycares open or make it safe to go outside. So I really started to dive in and
Mm.
focus on how I could change my mindset and show up in a way that served me so I didn't feel so like afloat. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I do. What
Yeah.
were those first days like for you? Like when you said, got to do something different here. Like, what did
Yeah.
you first do?
Well, I've always been interested in self-development. And so I started with some books that I already had. And I just started reading. I asked for help because that's something I've been really good at doing that a lot of moms struggle with. But lucky for me, I was like, well, I can't do it by myself. I need some help. So when I was able to, I got some time, an hour here, an hour there, and I spent it listening to podcasts and reading books and just getting to know the mentors in that space, the people who seem to have it together that I could learn from. And it was accessible because it was free. Podcasts don't cost money, and
You can do it
I
from
could.
home.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing I found that was super challenging in those first few days, the first few months really, is that the techniques that I was learning were not super accessible to me as a working mom, and essentially as a single parent because my spouse worked out of the home and was essential. So I was home by myself. And so I had to start tweaking. I thought, I want to do these things. I want to be better and stronger and more capable in my life and able to handle all of these things that are important to me, while still maintaining who I am. Seems like a tall order, um, but the tools available that I was reading and learning about weren't doable in my life. You know, I was mentioning to you earlier, the idea of a morning routine really appealed to me. But my kids woke up at 5 in the morning, and I was like, I'm not waking up before them. You know, even if I did, their spidey senses would be like, Mom's awake. You know, so I just started tweaking things and figuring out how I could make these ideas work in my life. And it grew from there. I started the podcast along that same vein just to share what I was learning. And now I'm a professional public speaker and a coach to help moms with, specifically I like helping moms now with time management. Because we need to have the time and the space to be able to do the things we want. And often it starts there.
Very, very good. I love it. And I love that you're focusing on that time management because so much of overwhelm, I think, is driven by feeling like we don't have time. Does that come across when you see when you're talking to people? Does that seem to be
Always.
true?
Yeah, it's funny because even just in my personal network, and it might be the same for you or for the listeners, it's like, how you doing when you meet your friends? Oh, I'm good. I'm busy. I'm really busy, right? We're all really busy.
Really busy. And it
And
prevents so much other things from happening. We're busy.
we're busy. And the thing is, a lot of my friends, when we're getting together and having coffee and catching up, and they have these dreams and these goals for themselves and ambitions, and they just never start because they can't find the time to do it. And that really breaks my heart. And there's always, we all have the same 24 hours, right? It's how we
Right.
spend it. Um, and the interesting thing about time management, the more that I dug into it, I've learned that it's got to be personalized. You can't just Google like time management for moms and find tips that are going to work for you. It needs to take into account who you are, what your personality style is, what your environment's like. Are you home? Do you work in the home? Do you not work? Are you just home? Are you working outside the home? Do you have support? How many kids do you have? How old are they? Right. And so it's fun for me because I have a quiz. It's just finishing up, so I'm going to release it soon, but it's what kind of super mom are you? And so depending on how you answer the quiz, you get to personalize time management things that are actually going to work for you in this phase of life because, you know, some people are really great with multitasking. And for other people, it's the worst thing and it kills their productivity. So there's lots of different ways and lots of different tools, but the real magic is in understanding what's going to work for you.
Right. And I guess the quiz helps you understand yourself
Yeah.
first. And then you can say, okay, these are the tools that work for someone like me. Because I am a hyper focuser,
Yeah.
and which is how I write books, but it's not great when you're trying to do other things sometimes.
Yes.
Because I literally, my brain is just locked in, and other things just go by the wayside. I'm like, oh, I forgot this, or I didn't follow up on that. And
And do you have, with that, I'm just curious because you would fit into what I call like the Energizer Bunny. You kind of just get in flow, right? And you can just work almost like a workaholic when you're on
I,
something.
yes,
Do you have
yes.
guilt about, like, do you ever have guilt for spending the time working on the things that you're passionate about?
I have because I'm such a hyper focuser. Like there's some books, I wrote this book in 5 weeks. I mean, that's how
Wow.
much I wrote the other one in like 6 weeks. Like I hyper focus where I could probably work if I wasn't bothered by anything 18 hours.
Same.
And I'm like, I probably should make dinner. I probably should wash the clothes. And
Yeah.
like there's because I'm an at-home mother. So there's some tasks I need to take care of. And so I've had to do some balancing in my own life and I realize that I am that way.
Yeah.
And so I can't write book after book after book because otherwise I would forever be in that state of hyper focus.
Right.
So I do have to break it up.
It's nice to learn these things about yourself, right? And sort of give yourself grace and understanding, like, oh, that's why, that's why this works for me, or that's why I feel like this. Do
Yeah,
you know, just a little tangent here, but I'm just curious if you know your human design energy type.
I did do the test once, and I honestly I cannot
Don't
remember it now.
remember.
Like if someone said, "Is it this, or this?" I'd be like, "Yeah, that's it," but I could not tell you right now.
No, that's cool.
Yeah,
I often wonder if I'm exploring the idea of linking like the energy types within that framework into time management. And I'm always curious to see, like, oh, I can test this on someone, right? Like, are
oh,
you actually the one I think you might be? So,
well, you know what? Maybe I'll do it again and then I'll let you know later
yeah,
because I know how I work and I have to be very careful because I can go in so deep
yeah.
that it's like you got to go get a flashlight and rope to pull me out
Right.
deep in the well. But then you have the situation, I think, where you probably see this with your clients and women you talk to. There's some who don't go at all because they don't think they'll have the time,
Hmm.
and some who go and they stop. And then you have people who maybe like you or I who go in hard.
Yeah.
Um, so there's all these types, but just because I'm getting that done doesn't mean I'm not getting something else is not happening.
Right.
So there's some give and take somewhere.
Always. And I love the idea of balance being a verb instead of a noun. Like balance is not something you should try to ever like achieve. You're constantly in balance, right? So understanding that in some seasons, like when you're writing a book, more attention is going to have to go there. And some of the other things, like some of the housework might slide, right? You have to reshift your priorities based on what season you're in. And I think that's especially true when moms are in the thick of like little kids up till, end of grade school even, like their
Yeah,
needs are changing so rapidly that you have to change, and by proxy your schedule has to change and your time availability is impacted and driven by their needs
it
you
is.
know
It
so
is. And I know you and we talked about this a little bit. Like we're in different child seasons, right?
yes,
So you've got the young ones, and mine are middle school and college now. So I felt liberated all of a sudden.
I bet I'm waiting.
I was like, wait. And it was really, I really had that moment during COVID, 2020, my son was 8 and
Yeah,
it was like, oh my goodness, our lives just changed. And what you were talking about when you said we cannot control any of the stuff on the outside. And it was affecting him, it was affecting everybody. Like suddenly everybody was home, right? And I was used to having the house to myself.
okay,
I was like, whoa, there's a lot of energy
yeah.
happening now. And I was working part-time from home at the time.
Mhm.
And suddenly I was also teaching and making sure my son's getting on every class and doing his homework because my husband was working full time from home, trying to like transition everybody to like suddenly remote work. It was wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, at that moment I was like, shift. What can I do? We
Mhm.
got a dog to help with some emotional help for my son, right? Um, but it was that shifting and allowing yourself to say, things are different right now. I have to do something different and I have to recognize like how is this impacting me on the inside? I'd love to talk a little bit about like that moment where I'm sure every woman probably has a moment where they're like, this isn't working. Some people say, this isn't working. So what am I going to do about it? Some say, this isn't working. I give up because they don't feel like there's anything they can do. But I know that there is. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit.
It's so hard when you reach that point, right? I always try to let people know that it's okay to start like making shifts and taking control before you hit that rock bottom moment, right? And so many of us have been there and we can relate. And some of us have been there more than once. That's kind of just
Oh, a few
how,
times. Yeah.
yeah, like we're sort of like we go through these cycles. And I think the more we go through it, the better we learn and the quicker we're able to identify and start to make those shifts. But it really comes from inner trust, I think, right? And understanding what are your values? What are you wanting your life to look and feel like? More specifically, feel like, because it might look different now. But if
Hmm.
you can set the foundation now when it's maybe you feel like there's not a lot of things you can impact, you'll see that down the road. Like you'll see it come to fruition later. It's not instant. That's the other thing I always really want people to hear is that the work doesn't translate overnight to results, right? And we all know that about things like going to the gym or eating healthy or finding love, or it's
Hmm.
not instantaneous, but it's also that same way with really claiming the life you want. It takes some time. And one of the biggest ways that we can start to do that is to take care of ourselves. And this self care is this buzzword right now, it's everywhere. We know
Hmm.
this. Um, but I like to schedule self-care into my calendar. And that's one of the things I wanted to share with the audience today as something that they could really take home and start to do, you know? I look at it a bit differently. And so when I'm coaching my clients, I suggest to them that before they do anything, they just write a list. And I recall doing this when I was lost in postpartum and not sure what made me happy, not really sure what I liked to do because I was just in mom mode and I forgot who Jill was. And so I made this list of things that filled my cup and lit me up and made me smile. And I kept it on my phone. And my intention was to refer back to it and sort of do these things. But I didn't because I didn't have a plan. So it's one thing. First thing is like identify what lights you up, what you love. Remember and keep it handy because you'll forget. But also find each week 1 hour. It doesn't need to be the same hour each week, at the same day, the same time, nothing. Just find an open hour in your calendar and block that off as like a non negotiable self care time. And what you do is you show up with no expectation of what you're going to do during that hour. You just show up for yourself. And you look at that list and you say, well, what do I feel like doing right now?
Mm.
Is it a nap? Is it a phone call to a friend? Do I want to get outside? Does my body want to move? Does it want to sit? Do I need to meditate? Like, do I want to read a book? What are these things that light you up because you identified them? But what does your body want right now? Because so many
Mm.
times I've tried to do like a yoga class as self-care. And it's every Wednesday at 8. And some Wednesdays at 8, I want to be in my pajamas. And some Wednesdays at 8, I'm on my cycle and I don't want to move, or maybe the kid just had a tantrum right before and I don't feel like, or I can't leave the house. So easing that restrictive, like same time, same place every week
Hmm.
just allows you to start to feel a little bit more loose about it, I guess is the word that I would say.
It's like controlled flow. Like
Yeah.
you're in the flow, but there's some control around it because you've
Yeah.
set the activities, you've blocked the time,
You just need to show up.
and you show up, and then you talk about intuition. I think that's when you tap into your intuition, and say, what is it that I need at this moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I believe we need to build in time. And for me, I build going to the gym or doing my workouts
Yeah.
into my schedule. Like I block a lot of time out every day for it. And it's non-negotiable. It's like, yeah, sorry, I am going to be there
Yeah.
showing up for work for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, I'll share this with you. I thought about this morning because I had a particularly difficult morning with my kids. My daughter specifically, she needed more from me today. She just wanted more hugs when I dropped her off and she wanted me to like stroke her hair or whatever. And I was like, at a point where I wasn't full enough to give the extra she needed. And it made me think like, that's why we do this self-care. That's why we take the time for ourselves so that we can fill ourselves up to a level that if someone else we love needs some, we've got some to give. And it just hit
Absolutely.
me. And I was like, oh, that's why,
It
you know?
is that is so that is so real. I know I had a couple of really tough years before coming into 2024.
Yeah.
And coming out of 2023, that's when I came back to me. Like I had to come back to me before I could start feeling creative again and like to use the things that I was put here to use and to do the things I was put here to do. I was like, yeah, I have to come back to me so that I can show up as best as I can for my family, for the people I love. And
Yeah.
what you just said is dead on. If we are not caring for ourselves, it's like that mask,
Yeah.
you got to put your
Totally.
mask on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no one's making it. Yeah.
But isn't it funny that as women, I think specifically as women and definitely as mothers, we wait until we know that our action, our investment of time, money, energy is going to benefit someone else. If it's just for us, we're like, oh no, I don't have the time to do that for myself. But when you think about, oh, it will benefit my relationship, it will benefit my child, it will benefit my community, my career, XYZ. Why do we need that? I always wonder, like, why can't we just claim it for ourselves? But, you know, even
It's
if
I
we
think a
can,
culture maybe.
yeah.
I think I finally claimed it for myself when I started my wellness journey. I finally was like, yeah, I am doing this completely for me. Like that was the heart of it. I was like, if anyone else benefits, that's second,
Mhm.
but I have to do this because I was like, I'm not going to make it as the person I'm supposed to be if I continue doing things the way I've been doing.
Yeah.
And how many women are out there? We're going along, and you've seen it, you've probably been, and we're doing these things, but we're spiraling or we're descending and declining emotionally, physically, and we're ignoring it. And so our well-being is suffering,
Mhm.
and your whole life begins to mimic that if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So if you take care of yourself, you're going to be taking care of everyone else, especially if you're a mom. And I'm going to just because your energy is the household's energy. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's
So what you
extra
just said,
important.
yes, what you said about, your child needing that extra and it's having to come from you. And as
Mhm.
moms, that's a special responsibility that we hold.
Yeah. We have like an extra reserve. Is it like camels that have two stomachs or something? I feel like we have extra reserve for like extra love and energy for our people.
Yeah,
We need to keep it full.
we do. We do. Wow. That just it's such a good reminder. I hope that everyone listening just takes that to heart, like the importance of showing up for yourself and taking care of yourself and building that time into your schedule so that you can be full, so that you can show up, so you can do the things that you're passionate about. And if and your family can be one of those things, so to speak, that you're passionate about, your career, your creativity. Like when you came out of this, you were doing it for, I assume, your mental health. Like, I need to show up.
Yeah.
But then it blossomed into something else. How
Hmm.
did that happen? Like one day you just woke up and said, I'm super mom and I'm gonna put on
I
my
just
cape and go.
I mean, honestly, I think it was that my friends and family, the ones who were closest to me and knew me the best, they didn't realize I was struggling so much. And I wasn't doing anything to like hide it or mask it on purpose, but they thought I was super mom. And they
Mm,
were always like, how do you do all this? You've got a business, you've got these kids and challenges, and how are you doing all this? And they were sort of feeling really down on themselves because they felt like they couldn't also do it. And I said, oh, I see what's happening here. I see that this is just not being talked about enough. About like, it's hard for me. Like, it's not easy and I'm
right.
doing a lot of work, but you can too. And so for me, that's when it took shape in the form of the podcast first, but giving the information to the women who also
Mhm.
were in the same situation but didn't realize they weren't alone, right? You so often can feel alone in that. Um, and there's social media comparison and all kinds of things that just make us feel like we can't talk about what's hard. And I think we're getting better about that. But that was for me the catalyst that really made it important enough to pursue,
Right.
and the more that I learned, the better I got at it. And the more people I helped, I was like, oh, yeah, I can help you and I can see that. And I'm going to help this person. And the more that I learn and share, the better my life becomes, but also I can help other women just by doing my own work, my inner work, right? So, yeah, that's kind of how it became outward facing.
Wonderful. And does it, have you seen, I don't know how much you get to like follow up with clients who've, worked with you and then, time has passed. But I think that's one of the most rewarding things is seeing the
Yeah.
result of efforts.
Yeah.
What is that like? Have you heard back from saying, I finally got this together, or um, my life has
Yeah.
changed in this way because of time management, because I finally am doing these things differently?
Yeah, and that's the real joy of it is when the client realizes that they're the magic, right? All along. It's like once you have someone to sort of guide you and hold you and support you and hold you accountable for doing the work and taking the actions and changing your mindset.
Mhm.
I can't do that for anyone. That's their job and that's their joy. Like that's their transformation to claim. So it's really fun to see, you know, I always promise for like a one-to-one coaching session, I say, spend 2 hours with me and get 1 hour a day back every single day. Like this is the gift of time. But to hear the clients come back and say, like, this is what I'm doing with my free time. Like I'm able to go and see my horse and spend the time doing this thing that's really been important to me that I put off, or they've changed their health or taken up playing guitar or, whatever was important to them. And an hour a day might seem like a lot or it might seem like a little, but the fact that they're now able to claim that hour for themselves, that's the big shift. And I love seeing that.
That is, and that's a lot of hours in the week when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do a lot. And I think,
Yeah.
for people who see that transformation, it also builds this idea of if this is possible,
Yeah.
what else is possible?
Yeah.
It's like, what else could I do with that hour? What else
Yeah.
could I do with, all this time that I've gotten back, and to
Hmm.
see that continue. I know for me, it's, seeing someone's transform physically, and what comes after that
Right.
when you get all of that back. So it's amazing when you put in time to yourself.
Hmm.
It's almost like one of those rewards that multiplies.
Totally.
Yeah.
And not only for yourself, like when you start to see the momentum and you get in flow, it's like things that are in motion stay in motion, right? You get better and more productive and more efficient, but also your family sees you changing and your energy is different and how you show up. And so they start to change and then they go into their lives and their schools and their workplaces with a different energy and other people start to notice. And
Yes.
so by working on your own self and your own household, that's how you change the world,
Yes. Say
right?
that
That's how you
again.
do it.
Oh, please say it one more time. This
It
is what I
all
believe
starts.
so firmly.
Yes, it starts with you in your household. That is how you change the world.
Yes. I I am such a firm believer, in
Mhm.
particular, that women are key to changing the world, because we start in ourselves, our homes, our communities, and then we put good things out there to change the world. And we have so much power over that I mean, I think that's why we're sheroes and superheroes and supermoms, because we
Totally.
we can do that. We can do
Yeah.
that just by showing up as in our strengths and our power, our magic, just by showing up as our highest selves, and we can really change the world.
Hmm.
And you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing
Feels
it.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I figure, yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I'm sure there's other women who are going to be listening to this, and I want you to ask yourselves, one, are you showing up for yourself right now? Small ways, big ways. Is it an hour a week? Is it more? If it's not even an hour a week, what else can you do to get that much in for yourself? And I want to ask you, Jill, do you have a tip for someone who's like, I can't squeeze an hour a week into my time? Is there just
Hmm.
like even one thing that they might want to think about, or try just to eke out something for themselves?
Totally. And this is a super fun thing. I didn't make up this term. I heard it from the Happiness Lab podcast, actually. And there was a researcher, I think, at Harvard named um, Ashley Willens, and she coined this term called time confetti. And in her research, she found that actually we have a lot more free time than in generations past. And the reason for that is things like the conveniences of technology. We don't have to go to the bank to deposit a check anymore. We can do it from home, right? That saves us the 20 minutes and the waiting in line. So we, in fact, do have more free time, but we don't feel like we do because it's in small pockets throughout the day. And she coined those small pockets time confetti. And so one way that you can get that hour is split it up. Maybe it's 6, 10 minute moments in your day that you can just start to realize, oh, I'm 10 minutes early picking the kids up. I'm gonna make that phone call. I'm gonna listen to an audiobook, or I'm gonna um, you know, do some stretching, or whatever your goal is, right? Whatever you're working towards, it's so different for everyone. If you're writing a book, like, oh, I'm just gonna write a couple pages or voice note myself, or um whatever you're working towards and wanting to bring more of in your life. I'm learning to speak Scottish Gaelic right now. So it's like, do I go on Duolingo and spend those 10 minutes learning a language? It's another list. I'm a list girl. Have a time confetti list. And the really cool thing about this type of list, because again, you're not going to remember them in the moment. The first step is remembering or noticing, oh, I have 5 or 10 minutes. But the second step is like, what do I do with it, right?
Right.
And on your list, beside each task or each activity, just dash the number of minutes it's going to take. So at a glance, you can look at your list and you're like, I have 5 minutes. Is there anything on this list that's 5 minutes? Right? Or I've got 20. What can I do, or what 2 or 3 things can I do to fill up my 20 minutes? And instead of recognizing the time and wasting half of it trying to figure out what to do, you have a clear plan. I'm really big on like strategy. So
I love that. Instead
yeah.
of looking at it and you're like, 20 minutes, okay, 11 minutes into that, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. And that's real, right? We've all been there. So instead of picking up your phone and scrolling for the 10 minutes, like claim that time towards the hour for you. It doesn't have to be all at once.
That's a good point. Thank you for clarifying that, because it's easy to get distracted
Yep.
and 10 minutes are gone
Yep.
and all you've done is like 8 posts and write happy birthday to
Yeah.
somebody, you know? You should still say happy birthday to people. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But what else could you do with your limited time? Especially if
Yeah.
your time is limited. You're like, what else can we do?
And let's face it, our time is always limited. All of us have busy lives.
True.
We all do.
And there's only 24 hours a day, and some of those hours need to be spent resting.
And yes, I'm big on sleep. Sleep is my form of self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to be spent resting. I learned that very well. I have to have my sleep. Otherwise, you
Hmm.
don't. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to take a nap. Either way. It's one of those things.
Yep.
Sleep at
And
nighttime or take a nap during the day.
or both.
Yeah. Or if I could, yeah,
Yeah.
both. So are there any other words of wisdom that you would want to pass on to those listening that you've, garnered in your time as a mom and doing this work?
I think the thing that feels important to share now is that like time management isn't the goal. It's not the end result you want. It's the tool you use to get the end result you want, right? And so if you can find tools that are going to work for you to create the result in your life that you want to feel or see or create, um, that's where your power comes in. So I would encourage anyone listening who feels like they don't have enough time or has a dream or something that they're working towards to really start to dig and find things that are going to work for you and use them in your tool belt, and think of it less as structure and more as freedom to help you get where you want to go.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jill. And before we go to the next part, I want people to be able to make sure that they can find you, that they can connect with you, because I'm sure you share tips and information and continue to inspire us to keep showing up for ourselves and doing the super mom thing. So in a moment, I'm going to let you share how people can connect with you, reach you, your social, all of that. If you have any giveaways you want to mention, of course, you can mention that as well. While you do that, I typically take this time to bring forth a mini message. It may just be a phrase, a few words, something from for my guest or for the audience at large. And so I'm just going to ask you, would you like a message?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Let's do a message though that is going to benefit the collective for everyone who's listening, either when it's released or in the future, a message that will land and resonate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't
So
you go ahead and share your information and I will get some information.
perfect. So, for anyone who wants some more details or to continue learning about time management, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. My handle is at Grow Like a Mother. And that is also the name of my podcast. So I have 2 episodes a week. I do a Woo Woo Wednesday where we talk about something a little bit witchy. And then on Thursday, I release usually an interview or a solo episode that's focused on self development, specifically for moms. I also, of course, offer the one-to-one coaching. You can find that on my website, which is jillwright.ca. And I do have a freebie that I'm so excited to share. I put together a 5-part video series. It's called Beyond Motherhood. You can sign up. I'll provide the link for the show notes. It's also on my website, and it's delivered to you by email once a day for 5 days. You get journal prompts, you get affirmations, and you get a little 5-minute video a day that will help you really start to put into practice some of the things that we've been talking about on this podcast and that I share about um, on socials. And of course, I wrote a book. It's called Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And it's kind of like a page a day calendar almost, but in book form. So the idea is you just find a page, read that one page, get a message for the day, has something to think about, um, and then go on with your life and pick it up the next day and read another page. It's designed for the busy women who don't have time to sit and read a book. So that's available everywhere as well.
Thank you so much, Jill, for sharing that. I'm going to check out that book myself because I like to know things. And I
The
do.
fun resource.
Yes, I like resources, like resources. And I think you sent me all of those links, but if you didn't, I will definitely follow up and make sure I get all of that to include in the show notes so people can easily access it.
Awesome.
Okay, so it was interesting because the message I got, I'm just going to share it. I'm just going to just going to read it. And it's on growth. So, this is what I received. Growth is a cycle like life. Be prepared for the be prepared for the darkness and light, and have the tools to reach the light. The darkness is not to be feared. It's where the truth is cemented into your spirit, your heart, and roots in so that when light returns, your light is there to match it.
Mm,
I'm going to read
beautiful.
it one more time since it wasn't. Growth is a cycle like life. Be prepared for the darkness and light, and have the tools to reach the light. The darkness is not to be feared. It's where the truth is cemented into your spirit, your heart, and roots in so that when light returns, your light is there to match.
Mm.
I'm going to leave that message with you, with all of you, and just let that marinate. I'm going to let that marinate because if you've ever been someplace and you feel like you're in that darkness, it can feel scary, it can feel lonely, but there's some powerful stuff that does happen in those seasons of darkness. And sometimes it's just cementing in all of your truth and all of your power so that you can come out stronger and meet light with light. So I just want to say thank you again to Jill Wright. Grow Like a Mother, for being here with me on that Share Life podcast. I've had fun. I hope you've learned a lot, you've gotten something out of this, and that you take it to action. Don't wait, don't delay. Take it to action right now. Write your list. If that's the only thing you do after this podcast, write your list of those things you love to do that light you up so that when you get those 5 minutes or 10 minutes of free time or downtime, you can go to that list, pick something, and give yourself some magic back in your own life. I want to thank you once more, Jill. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming in today. I hope everyone here enjoyed it, got something from this. And if you're a super mom, just a super woman, Shiro showing up, keep doing it. We need you. We need your light. We need your energy in this world. Thanks so much. I'm Burnett Sherman again with that Shiro Life podcast. Be amazing.